there, you beautiful, wonderful, intelligent human being. I'm Andrea Dawn, and today we are here discussing more yoga asana, or the physical postures of the yoga practice. And I always like to remind myself and others how the physical postures can be a gateway into discovering our self with the uppercase S, so that we remain true to the goal of yoga, which is Svarupe Vastanam, to reside in our true nature. So using the postures to help us discover what is that true nature. And today we'll be looking at Kapotasana, or pigeon pose. And this is one of those postures that you'll hear people either love or hate. And so we want to start to discourage the loving or hating, the liking or the disliking of postures, so that we can look at them with the lens of discernment of helpful or not helpful, beneficial or not beneficial, especially in a pose like this that can be very stressful on the joints and might not be beneficial to most practitioners. So we want to remove the ego part that everyone else in the class is doing it, so I should be able to do it, right? Release the should and what would help my body. So if we get to the why behind why we're doing the posture, we can make those decisions. So let's dive into pigeon pose. Each posture in the physical yoga practice has a Sanskrit name ending in asana, meaning seat or posture. Today we'll explore pigeon pose, or Kapotasana. So when we break down the Sanskrit, we see Kapota, which is pigeon, and asana, seat. Kapota was also the name of a great sage who is noted for his yogic achievements in the Mahabharata and the Kalika Purana. Some older texts describe Kapotasana as a standing pose. However, the pigeon that we know in our modern day asana can be found in B.K.S. Iyengar's book, Light on Yoga. This brings us to the why behind Kapotasana. The intrinsic why behind all yoga asana has little to do with the shape itself, and much more to do with the shape of the mind. When the mind is stiff and inflexible, we are unable to discern between opinion and reality, truth and belief, need and want. When the mind is out of shape, our compulsions blind us. The medias bias us and we become weak, susceptible to fear-mongering and the kind of mass manipulation that we witnessed in the pandemic of 2020. When we strengthen the body with asana, we are really strengthening the focus, commitment, and integrity of the mind. Who decides to practice, to get on the mat daily, to hold that one leg standing balance just a few breaths longer, or to back off pigeon and take a modification? Your body is not making those decisions. You are, hopefully, with the intelligence of the body, cueing the mind so that you can give yourself what you need. Asana is strengthening your mind by training things like your resolve, your ability to discern, and your one-pointed focus. These are the muscles needed to erase habitual thought patterns that are giving you dis-ease. The physical why behind Kapotasana is to stretch the hip flexor, the groin, the psoas, the thigh, the glutes, and the piriformis. Pigeon also has the potential to stretch and strengthen the back and the abdomen, depending on the variation. Kapotasana can have symbolic, metaphoric, and meaningful significance to our own personal whys. When we consider the Sanskrit translation, we see Kapota, which again is pigeon. In many cultures, the pigeon is said to be a messenger of divine guidance. When we observe the lifted open heart and chest in Kapotasana, we are reminded of how we give and receive messages, whether that be with our friends, family, and loved ones, or with Spirit herself. When our hearts are heavy, closed, and offline, we tend to be self-absorbed, lost in the turbulence of our own thoughts, ceaseless liking, disliking, judging, desiring, condemning, and so on. The tyranny of our mindscapes allows no space to give and receive love with those around us, much less the divine. Next time you're in pigeon pose, accept the opportunity to make yourself available by simply acknowledging your big, beautiful, wide open heart. Swing those double doors open and prioritize the giving and the receiving of love. How might life feel different if we replaced whatever number one was on your to-do list today with give and receive love? Perhaps when you move on to number two, which is something like paying the bills or grocery shopping, those to-dos will transform into get-tos. And so I find it interesting that we, as humans, tend to prioritize the mundane, the tasks, right? And if we just replace that number one with something like giving and receiving love, all of the things that we need to do, our dharmas, our duties, yes, we need to get those things done during the day, but it could change the way in which we do everything. So if we come back to that old saying, the way in which we do one thing is the way in which we do everything. Well, how do we influence that one thing? What if we opened up our mind and our heart to prioritizing love? The most important thing for me to do today is to make somebody feel a little bit more loved. That could be through something so simple like sending an emoji, some heart emojis, some star emojis, some rainbow unicorn emojis to someone, and them getting to receive that message from you unexpectedly. Giving somebody a wink, giving somebody a compliment, and then opening up your heart to receiving them as well. So next time someone gives you a compliment, instead of going right into the comeback compliment, taking a moment to receive, to actually receive love and feel what it feels like to be appreciated, to be seen. Okay, all of that being said, all of that coming from Pigeon pose, we'll demo the posture now. And again, that is why I find the practice so powerful, because it gives us these moments of getting on our mat and being undistracted by the outside world so that we can decide and prioritize. So now when I do go back out into the outside world, I have intentions. I've thought about what's important to me. And I reminded myself of that daily. Getting on the mat does that. Okay, so we can either start in all fours or downward facing dog. I personally like downward facing dog, but it's just the same thing pretty much starting in all fours. So you can either be in downward facing dog and you'll take the knee to the outside of the hand, or you can be in all fours and you'll take the knee to the outside of the hand. I find a little bit more space coming from downward facing dog. So you could start by lifting the leg, but what we're going to do is bring the knee to the outside of the hand. Now I'm going to keep the lower half of my leg on a steep diagonal, meaning that my left hip flexor is over my right heel. And then from there, I'm going to start to wiggle walk this back leg back and lower my pelvis down. And here I want to be acknowledging my knee, my hip, how much is enough, because I'm putting all of my body weight onto this, right? So as I do that, I'm acknowledging, okay, it's okay, it's okay. I'm going to flex my right foot. And then from there, I can decide, this is too much. I need to prop. I need to place a pillow underneath my outer hip. This isn't quite enough. I'm going to make my shin a little bit more parallel to the front of the mat. All right? And then in one variation, we talked about keeping the heart and chest open, right? So if you were headed towards a king pigeon, which is bending the back leg and reaching the hand around, which I don't even teach because for most people it's inaccessible, and I find other back bends to be more healthy and more accessible to most folks. Anywho, we can use this as a bit of a back bend and heart opener, and we can do that by tenting our fingers, right? And here I just want to make sure I'm not crunching in my low back, and I'm doing that by scissoring my legs. So my right knee and right hip is drawing back, my left leg is drawing forward. And you can see this as I lift my hands up. And another experiment I like to do is keep my hands up and see, is it okay for me? Can I do this? Right? If I can't, that might be an indication I need to prop. But if I want to keep that back bend in, right, and that heart and chest opening where we're really acknowledging that giving and receiving and love is the most important part of our day. Then I'll lift through my heart and chest, lift through my crown, and stay here and breathe here. Now, another variation is sleeping pigeon. So if you've identified that this is okay for you, you can start to walk your hands forward. You could come onto forearms. Here's where you might prop, you might place a block to rest your forehead down. If it's still okay for you, again, allowing your internal compass to decide versus like any kind of thought about the shape of what it looks like or what it means to get deep into a posture or what the person next to you is doing. So you might extend your arms all the way out and rest your forehead down. Again, this is probably going to be for a few amount of people. And my guess is a lot of people are doing it and it's too much. However, not for everyone. Some of us have very open hips and this is okay. So other variations that you can take when you get down here are adding a twist or threading the needle. So you could thread this right arm underneath the left, right? I might thread the needle. I might turn my head to the side. I could also find a twist where I'm bringing my right elbow into the sole of my right foot, right? And I can use that to continue to press the knee more out towards the side. So I'm getting even more here if that's okay. And then I might bring the hands to prayer and find a twist there. Again, not for most people. So making sure we adjust our expectations to meet our body's needs and serve our body as the temple that it is. And then to get out of it, I like to go back into downward facing dog, but you could be coming to all fours, in which case you'd tuck the back toes, hop this back knee in, and then slide the leg back. I'm gonna come back up into downward facing dog because I find a nice counter by bending the knee and circling out the hip here. Okay, and then you could go right into the other side. Many other variations, but I hope that this was helpful in understanding pigeon pose, in giving it deeper meaning for you, or just giving you some ideas to contemplate when you're in pigeon pose. Oh, what if I made giving and receiving love a little bit more important for me today? As always, such a blessing, honor, and privilege. My heart sees and feels and smiles to yours. Namaste.